and good day, and welcome to the Constitution Line by Line. I'm Paul Fabrizio.
And I'm Don Frazier.
And we're professors at McMurray University, Abilene, Texas.
We are.
Yeah, you teach history?
I'm history, you're poli-sci.
Yep.
We're going to triangulate in on this Constitution thing.
It better watch out. Or we better watch out, depending on how it goes. All right, we are on Article 1, Section 3.
Dun, dun, dun.
The Senate. All right.
Well, we spent a lot of time gabbing about the House, the riffraff. Now we're heading over to the fancy folk.
Yes, we are. The election of the senators, as we get into it, clause number 1, the Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state, chosen by the legislature thereof for 6 years, and each senator shall have 1 vote.
Now, they're chosen by who?
In the original Constitution, they were chosen by the legislators.
Wow.
That was changed by a certain amendment, which I think is your least favorite.
17th. It's
17th Amendment, and we will get to that later. But the original idea of the Constitution was that the senators are not the riffraff.
No.
And they are chosen by the legislators from their home state.
It's sort of like being triple distilled.
Ooh.
Because you're distilled by the voters of the state to the state ledge, and then the ledge picks these guys. So, I mean, there's several processes at play before you get your senators chosen. It's not about skateboarding. It's not about yard signs.
Nope.
It's all about working hard in your state capital to suck up to the right factions.
I was waiting for you. You were going on in this virtuous trend, and then
this
not
is
at all.
gritty
Come
politics,
on.
but it's gritty politics in the state capitals.
Yes, exactly.
That's what's cool about it. It's the state capitals.
Okay.
But it's not, let's get on YouTube or InstaFace or whatever and appeal to the masses. Okay. I think that's so unseemly for senators.
Hence, well, there's a lot of things I could think of about hence, but let me just ask you a question about this, and this is a historical one. Why were the framers so opposed to the popular will of the people? I mean, the House is elected by the people. What's wrong with the Senate?
Because the people can't be trusted.
What?
I'm telling you.
No, not the American people.
The American people cannot be trusted.
The framers didn't trust the American people?
I don't think they trusted human nature. Paul, since you've asked me a historical question.
We're going to have a pontification
section
of this.
Pontification. All right. There's 2 parts of human nature.
Okay.
There's a little animal and a little God.
Little angel?
Well, a little angel, little devil.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever. But the idea of the duality of the human...
You're going with that.
Of humanity.
Okay.
I'm not saying I necessarily believe it one way or the other. I'm saying this is dancing around inside the heads of people that are trying to come up with a government. Mm-hmm. And I think that they understood that, all right, we've given the hoi polloi their role with the House. Now it's time to have this sort of distilling element with the Senate.
Okay.
I've been to big box retailers.
Yes.
I have seen the best and the worst of humanity.
Yes.
And so I get that. If there is a best and there is a worst, if we're not all just average, we're not like Starfleet where we're all wearing the same clothes and the guys in the red suits are going to get killed when they go on the away mission. We are all individuals. And this, I think, takes into account that reality.
I really want to believe you, and for the most part I do.
Yeah.
But there's something in my head that's saying, yeah, but maybe not.
All right, so what's your take?
The state legislatures who are going to elect these senators are a breeding ground of conflict of interest and moneyed interests and, corruption. In our day, there would be so many things that would be wrong with how the legislatures existed in those days. Okay?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
And these people who wrote the Constitution certainly were aware of that because they were selected by those state legislators to go to the Constitutional Convention.
Absolutely. They'd already figured out how to suck up at the state level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, in fact, while we hold up the Senate as the more refined people,
not necessarily,
we have the masses electing the House, but then we have the corrupted electing the Senate.
But don't the corrupted get a voice? I mean, and I say that only half in jest. This is the Senate and the plebs. This is the struggle of the orders from the Roman Republic.
So what we're trying to say here is we should not think of the Senate as sometimes it likes to think of itself as this exalted place.
No.
It's simply people.
The guys with the best Rolodex.
Yeah, exactly.
It's simply
people in a whole different.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Yeah, I'm not looking at them as saints by any stretch of the imagination.
Because sometimes you listen to senators, sometimes you listen to people talk about the creation of the Senate, and the Senate's supposed to be removed from the people so they can think about the goodness and the national interests of the American people. And you go, but wait a second. These people are all chosen by the state legislators.
Yeah.
And no one has ever described the state legislatures as a hotbed of virtue.
But they are representing the interest of the state.
That's true.
And I think that is something that has been lost all the way to the present day.
And my challenge to you would be, how would it be different if we elected senators through the state legislature? Would we have anything different?
Would we have different senators than we have?
Would we have different senators than we have? Possibly.
Oh, I think so.
Would the states be better represented?
I think if John Cornyn could clone himself, we'd have two of them.
We would not have our certain senator who grew a beard after the last election, Ted Cruz.
Yeah, he appealed to the pitchfork and torch-bearing crowd and won.
And then grew a beard.
And then grew a beard after almost being overthrown by a guy who appealed to the pitchfork and torch-bearing crowds. And I just think that's an unseemly process. I'd rather not know what's in my sausage when it comes to the Senate. And grind it behind closed doors.
And I'd rather see it all out in the open. Let's see who these people are.
Yeah, I fear the tyranny of the mob. The tyranny of the majority.
As opposed to the tyranny of the moneyed class in the state legislature.
Absolutely, because those guys know how to make a match. And by that I mean a match, like a striking match.
So they can get the...
Well, no, they know how to make stuff. They know how to do stuff.
Sometimes
they're born that way.
There's certain states you look at how their state legislature operates, and sometimes it's really horrible.
Sure.
And, I mean, as just an example, if I could bring this up, Nebraska, which we've talked about sometimes...
you love that place.
Well, I need to go sometime.
You need to go.
But
and
anyway,
go be a visiting professor at someplace in Nebraska and live there a while and soak it in.
Nebraska, there is in the unicameral legislature right now. Proposed bills to legalize or decriminalize marijuana.
Sure.
Okay, and they're not going to pass. So. They also have the Citizens Initiative, and it looks like if it doesn't pass in the state legislature, the citizens are going to go ahead and pass not just a decriminalization of marijuana, but something so much greater than any other state currently has.
Wow.
So they're in want of one thing, they're going to get just the opposite of what they wanted. And it's like that legislature isn't working right. Then you have other legislatures.
Isn't it, though?
It's not.
Because it's not representing the will of the people?
It's not representing the will of the people. And as a consequence...
But sometimes the will of the people is wrong.
Who is to decide that? Historians. That's right. Whereas political scientists will say,
I will tell you exactly what's right and wrong.
Hey, the will of the people, I would argue, in a democracy, in the end, must be respected.
Yeah, that's why I think we're a republic and not a democracy.
In the end, in a republic, the will of the people must be respected, or the legitimacy of the state, of the government, is going to be called into question.
Okay, I'll buy that. That's Lockean theory there.
Yes, it is. And by the way, a republic is simply a democracy.
Okay, we'll have that convo.
Yes, we will. All right. That took care of Clause 1, unless there's more you want to say.
No. I think we said all we need to.
Direct election of our U.S. senators. Okay. Oh, by the way, 6 years.
Yeah.
Why 6?
To keep them from having to rotate so often, so that they can get their feet under them and actually accomplish something, in my opinion.
Okay.
How do you think?
So a sense that the longer they're there in Washington, the more skilled they would be at understanding the bureaucracy.
Correct.
Understanding the ways of Washington. But also, I would argue, it goes back to we need to remove them from the people.
Sure.
I mean, 6 years is a long time. And in essence, many senators are forgotten in their time in Washington.
Sure.
And so, again, the direct will of the people is best expressed through the House. The Senate, stand back, take a good look at what are the national interests. One way to do that is...
And the state interest.
And the state... You love the state interest.
I do.
And one way to do that is not have the legislators come forward before the people or the legislators for votes. Now, the danger here, however, is that if you're gone for 6 years, are you really representing the will of the people? Are you representing the will of the state legislature? Are you representing the will of the state?
I think, in my opinion, and what I've seen historically, back when we chose senators correctly, they were certainly up there representing the state.
For the length of their term.
For the length of their term. They were so-and-so of the great state of Ohio, so-and-so of the great state of Tennessee.
That's what they say today.
Well, that's a relic.
Okay.
Because now they're from the free state of the District of Columbia.
See, how long can you be away from the people before you're no longer accountable to the people?
6 years.
And
send them home.
And see, that also goes to the state legislature, too. How long can you be away from the state legislature?
Sure.
So you put me in 4 years ago. I don't have to worry about you for another couple of years. I'm going to do what I want.
Sure, and they'll do what they want, and then 6 years they come home.
And they say, that was it. I had great time.
That was it. I had my one term. Because the state leg is going to send somebody else up there because it's essentially an extension of their patronage.
That's true. Now, under the current system, where everybody goes before the voters...
You can stay up there for 50, 60 years.
You could, because you are convincing the voters of the goodness of you as an elected official.
That's right. And so you may be from Texas, but you may be the best senator that, say, Arkansas ever had.
Okay. Now, our state legislator... forgive me, our U.S. Senator, and I'm talking about John Cornyn, is up for re-election next year. Where is he today?
I haven't a clue.
He is here in Abilene, Texas.
Really?
Yes, he is. Okay.
Well, good for John.
Would he have been here if he had to appeal to the state legislators?
No, heavens no. But he also wouldn't be up for election.
Yeah. Well, he would like the
already
job.
know that somebody else was going to replace him.
Well, maybe he could work with them to try to make sure that he's reelected.
But
in fact,
handpick his successor.
Maybe.
So that you have dynasties.
Yeah, okay. But instead, he is here because he knows he needs to be here. Because
needs to be here.
Voters are here.
Sucking up the voters.
Of course. And isn't that what you want your legislators to do, is to suck up to the voters?
Some of them, the ones that get elected every 2 years, that represent 30,000 people. Absolutely. Not the ones that represent 750,000 people that are elected in perpetuity because they can ride a skateboard.
And how can they be elected in perpetuity? Because they know how to appeal to the voters.
Well, sure.
And I think that's a very good thing. We disagree
here.
We
disagree. It's not like
that's cool.
But we can still be friends.
We can. All right. I think we're through with Article 1, Section 3, Clause 1. What do you say?
All right. Let's call this one done. So we'll pick up Clause 2 next time. Thanks.